Hello and welcome to Love Island the morning after, the only official Love Island podcast in the world.
This morning we are joined by the lovely Lewys Ball.
Hello.
And the amazing Chris Taylor.
Oh, amazing today. I love it.
Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
How are you feeling?
Oh,
Good.
delicious.
Right, we need to get into it. First, I'm going to ask, who goes into Casa Amor and gets into a triangle?
Sean does. Our favourite sweet man.
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn with him because I feel like a little bit like he's gone in there and he's got a little bit excited. Let's face it, he's taken a lot of pies so far this season.
Yeah.
And he's got into a situation where there's many girls in there that have shown an interest in him. So he's gone with his gut. And quite frankly, it seemed like he was a little bit high on the E numbers from the sweets. He's gone a bit too far with all of it. And now he's just got the problems of the aftermath to deal with.
Do we think that maybe Sean got a little bit confused with the terms of what exploring means? Because, you know, from Matilda's point of view, she felt like exploring was just genuinely having a conversation. But we have sweet boy Sean actually explaining, well, I went for a little bit of a kiss. What do we think exploring means?
This is the problem when you don't communicate where your boundaries are. Because if they had had a simple conversation like, okay, we're closed off, then that would be a black and white. Oh, you could maybe speak to someone but wouldn't kiss. But when you don't have these conversations is when you get into situations like this where people are on different pages. To me, I think after spending set amount of weeks or days they have spent together 24/7, I would think kissing would be pushing the boat a little bit. Kissing one person, never mind two. I think what Matilda did was the respectful way of exploring.
Yeah.
And just chatting and getting to know.
I don't know. I will argue to the opposite of that just for the sake of it, to be honest. But what Matilda was doing was she was in bed and she was doing tickly stuff.
Oh, I did forget about the
Now,
tickly.
I think the tickly stuff is actually quite intimate. Let's face it, kissing is intimate.
Yeah, come
but
on.
the tickly stuff is not to be ignored, I think.
It was only a little touch. I mean, she barely touched him. It was a little trickle, like.
It looked intimate.
It wasn't
to me.
like it was a spoon.
But sometimes that is worse than the kissing.
Yeah.
The tickle goes unnoticed and no one ever touches on it again because no one sees. Kissing is outright, I'm doing this in front of everyone, so I'm making this very open.
Yeah.
Tickling in bed when you think no one's watching. I'm not saying in this case specifically, but
it can be construed or misconstrued. Yeah. Going back to your boundaries thing though as well, I think like what's quite hard in there is like you don't actually know when Casa's coming. You know it is looming at some point.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how little time there actually is in there.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like after you take breakfast, lunch and everything out of the way, the amount of chatting time is actually quite minimum. Obviously the girls are separate from the boys for the rest of the time. So like to actually have those chats is quite a difficult thing.
Yeah.
that is true.
And to set boundaries when clearly they're not boundary setters because they're on Love Island.
Yeah. I mean, do we feel like maybe the female attention got a bit much for Sean and maybe a bit to his head? I mean, he did mention that the girls were throwing themselves at him and he wasn't being the real Sean, but do we feel like maybe he had a part to play?
I just think it was the classic case of Casa and they all got giddy and then they were like...
He definitely got
They
giddy, yeah.
walked the walk and then they got back in the main villa and couldn't talk the talk.
Yeah,
And now
exactly.
they're like,
Exactly.
I maybe shouldn't have done that, but I was just very extremely giddy.
Yeah, he said he let off a lot of steam. Quite frankly, there was steam coming out of every orifice, if I remember correctly. But yeah, like as I said before, he's been in a bad situation for the first 4 weeks. He's found himself in a new one where he's got girls left, right and centre.
Yeah.
So he's succumbed to it.
Yeah.
And can I just give 10s to Diamante for the way she told the story to
Oh,
Matilda?
fantastic
Needs her
storytelling.
own podcast. She
Yeah,
is a
she does.
storyteller.
It was like a Stephen King novel. What was it? The lights go out. We're in the room. An air of excitement
giving her a
drifts across the
feel of what was
bedstead. It
going.
was ridiculously detailed. I felt
Yeah.
like I was in the moment with her.
Yeah.
Absolute storyteller.
Detailed but very necessary because I do think around that Casa and Amor recoupling, Matilda was a little bit frosty towards Diamante. And I think if it wasn't for that chat, she wouldn't have realised, well, maybe how not so sweet Sean was.
Yeah, why do you think that was, Indiyah?
I feel like it was a lot of ego, you
Yeah.
know? And at the end of the day, you're going to back your man, that's fair. And Matilda wasn't in Casa Amor, so she didn't know what was going on. But again, I think she really needed to hear, you know, Diamante out to get the whole story about what was actually going on. And once she did, she seemed very receptive and very sort of, you know, understanding that actually, Sean did had a part to play in
Yeah,
this.
I feel like it was misplaced anger
Absolutely,
at first because she thinks Sean is like this lovely, holier-than-thou sweet boy, right?
Yeah.
And that's all she's known of him. And then she's being told something by a girl she doesn't know that it's actually contrary to that. So she's fired off straight at Diamante and then realised maybe the next day, actually, I shouldn't have gone in that hard, really.
Yeah, I'd say it wasn't very girl codey at the start.
It was aimed at the wrong person, wasn't it?
Like you said, misplaced anger. But after the conversation, everything was in the right place and I feel like they're on the same page and they understood what was going on. Now, speaking of girl code, we have the lovely Jess. Informing Sean that Matilda was actually getting to know Hugo. Do we think this was necessary or do we feel like she kind of just let this out because she knew that Matilda liked Hugo and it kind of rubbed her the wrong way during Casa?
Yeah, I just think she's out there making bolognese sauce again for no reason. Like, I don't know why she felt the need to do it. I just sat there and I thought, to what end? Like, I think because of the Casa, Hugo, Jess, Matilda situation, they're all the ingredients to the bolognese sauce, if you wondered. Because of that situation, she's basically felt like, oh, I'm going to get my own back on Matilda.
Yeah.
But actually, like in that situation, it was Hugo that was telling Matilda that he fancied her and she didn't really actually do anything.
Yeah. I just think when you're in Casa Amor, I know as cliche as it sounds, but that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
You are supposed to get to know people.
Yeah.
And Matilda did it the way she saw best fit, you know? She had a conversation. She saw if there was a vibe. There was a bit of a vibe, but she didn't think it was worth it. Done. That's it, you know?
Yeah, I think Jess talked her out of it though.
Yeah, absolutely. She thought, I didn't want this smoke.
The animosity, yeah.
I feel like Jess did that in a way. If she gets called out on it, she can mask it in, I was just being a good friend to Sean and all that kind of stuff. They're all friends in there for the most part.
Yeah.
And you don't see any of the other boys going to the girls, oh, well, Will actually did this in Casa Amor, or I was doing this actually that he's not said to you, Mimi. When they're all still friends, but it's just a sort of like, girls keep girls back and boys keep boys back. And as like hard as it might be, that's just a boundary that you want to keep sweet in there. And I feel like Jess crossed the line there, going to the other side and giving information which wasn't her place to say.
I think on the whole, which is my favourite phrase, this year, bro code has actually been significantly stronger than girl code. And that is a rare thing because we very much just ignore it a lot of the time in certain situations, but girls often stick by it.
Yeah, girls used to buy it. I mean, is it more this year or is it just Jess?
Yeah. You might be right with it just being Jess. Because Harriet was being a bit wild at the beginning
who was
as well.
Harriet doing it with? Jess.
Common denominator.
Common denominator. So I feel like there has been a lot of code.
And she did say in one episode that she usually gets on with boys better anyway because she has better banter.
Great callback as well, because that was probably at least 3 weeks ago. So well done.
If someone says that they get on with boys better, alarm bells are ringing in my head and I won't forget that.
Really? Why is that? Explain that. That's interesting.
I think that people can get on with boys better or can get on with boys and girls equally as a girl, but I don't think you have to announce it to the group, that specific fact. I'm side-eyeing it slightly because we don't need to know that part of the information. Just get on with the boys. Like, you don't need to sit here and tell me that you get on with boys better.
It's not necessarily a trophy because it's like, at the end of the day, boy or girl, I understand why we all have like reasons why we like each other a bit more. Do you know what I mean? Like as a boy, you might have more in common. As a girl, you might have more in common. So like for me to go out of the way and kind of like let people know that I don't get along with girls, even though categorically we might have a lot in common, it's just a bit like...
It's a very I'm not like other girls.
Yeah.
Is it a bit pick me?
Oh, yeah. And 9 times out of 10, you're not getting picked.
Yeah.
You're not getting picked.
This is the 1 out of 10 because she is right now one of the most secure couples in this.
Yeah, it's not bloody hard right now though, is it? They're all a mess. It's an absolute catastrophe in there in a minute. It's time to dish out our pre-love serves of the week with official headline sponsor, eBay. Bombshell Will kick things off by stepping out into the villa in a tropical Tasso Elba Island shirt. He scored another win, coupling up with Uma in her fire rat and boa starburst dress and this Stussy jacket. A classic pick worn by Shaq and Tom in Series 9, Mehdi in Series 10, and Adam during All-Stars. Kind of jealous I didn't get to wear it because that pink would have looked ravishing on me during the villa parties. Meanwhile, old flames were rekindled for Joey and Grace in the hideaway, with Joey wearing this Givenchy t-shirt. Just another week of pre-love summer. Discover more villa-inspired looks on eBay today. Fashion fit for a second chance. eBay, sponsors of Love Island. Let's move on to true love.
True love?
True love. Ciaran and Nicole. Because it's a beautiful thing to see.
It
Well,
is.
it was for a little bit of time.
It still is.
It still is, but it seems to have taken a bit of a backstep.
That's Ciaran and Nicole for you. I feel like we can't watch Ciaran and Nicole without having a little bit of like, old married couple arguments.
And that's why they're going to win, because we
Yeah.
need to see that.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
They've got that balance of love and hate.
Yeah.
So basically, Ellie was saying that they've been messaging on and off for a good few months.
Yeah.
Ciaran was arguing to the opposite of that. It wasn't a good few months. I was trying to downplay it. And obviously, Nicole is just, her head's fried, her brain's wandering everywhere. What do we think about this?
I think that it's just a classic case of Chinese whispers where Ellie said one thing to Nicole, and then Nicole's now reporting it back to the girls. And every time the story gets said, something more gets exaggerated. And now it's gone from a couple messages to he couldn't get his hands off her in the club and had to be pried off her. And he sent her videos of his dogs. Like,
Yeah.
this is like,
And I was hoping and praying that that was something else.
Honestly,
I thought that was going in a
know.
very different direction.
Dogs is basically like sending your children.
Oh, that's marriage.
That is, the end game.
I don't show
If
my dog to
show you
anyone.
my dogs,
It's not.
oh, come on.
No, it is a big deal.
It
that.
is a conversation filler. Look at my
Yeah.
dogs, so she can go, oh, they're so cute.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what,
And
it
it was on Snap as well, so it's probably like a
Yeah.
Snap streak thing.
Exactly. She could have been a part of a streak and took it personal.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, like, my opinion on it all is it's difficult, right? Because I feel like the amount of information that Ciaran is sharing, it's not that he's necessarily forgotten what he's done. It's that he doesn't know what's important in the priority hierarchical structure for a girl. I feel like Trey now saying embryonic, but like for
Don't say
girls, they need all the detail, right? But boys don't work off detail. Like, have you ever seen the boys talk about a kiss and the girls talk about a kiss?
Yeah,
The boys
it's
are like,
very
yeah, it was
different.
all right. And the girls are like, oh, yes. And the lip quivered
Like,
slightly on
for
the
example,
right-hand
Grace,
side.
When she kissed Mazar, she's like, 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
I
yeah. And she goes into
absolutely
detail.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was slow, it was fast, and it was tongue.
Yeah.
But and the boy's like, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, it was
so
all
it's that kind of problem. But like, he doesn't know what details to share with her because he doesn't know what is important to her. But obviously, Nicole wants to know everything. She wants all of the details, which I think is actually surplus to requirement because that was him as a single boy. Now he's in love with someone. He's never felt this way about anybody else. He said that the other day. So I feel like she should be taking him on face value as opposed to worrying about what he's done when he was single. We're two different people.
And we've got to remember as well, Ciaran didn't know Nicole at that point. And, we've got Ellie talking about, he sent me pictures of the dogs. They never even went on a date. Like, physically, they never met
They never made it
up.
to a
And
date.
all
They said
very
hello on a night out and Ciaran can't even remember it.
She said
Yeah.
How
on
many
and
Jaeger
off.
bombs did he have?
On and off for months. On and off for months could be a, hi, how are you doing? Once every fortnight for 3 months. Like that
Literally.
could not. As soon as Nicole heard the word months, she
Yeah.
couldn't hear anything else as soon as she heard
Yeah,
the word
her head
months.
exploded.
If I had to have the start of my relationship televised to millions of people, I'm sure I'd be like Nicole. Because trust is something that comes in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that she's having so many external factors thrown left, right, and
Yeah.
center. That especially in such an unnatural environment where she couldn't have like, per se, her mum's advice on it, or
Yeah.
Ciaran could pull out the messages to prove it. Do you know what I mean? It's a very unusual circumstance to be having the start of your relationship in. So
Absolutely.
100%.
we got to give her time.
And actually, months is a massive vanity stat. So it sounds way worse than
Like
it
you're
is.
talking every day for months.
Yeah. What's the frequency
Yeah.
within the duration of time? We could
Yeah.
probably do an equation, but there's no time for it, and I'm not good at maths. So let's move on.
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to touch on as well is that during the Castery coupling, Ellie and all the other girls, when they saw how happy Nicole and Ciaran were to be reunited together, they were all standing there like, yeah, babe, he couldn't stop talking about
I know,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
All
backing
of that
him.
stuff. So to hear Ellie plant this seed into Nicole's head and be like, yeah, babe, we were talking for months. It's a bit like, because he didn't give you that much attention, Casa
Yeah.
You know it was
He's
nothing.
actually,
It's
to his
like-
credit, he's done really well in Casa Amor. Like, lesser men have performed a lot worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's been true. He's not stayed in a bed with anyone. He's only kissed people in challenges.
Yeah.
And he's come out the other side. He's gotten a glorious review. And then Ellie's like, oh, but you don't know what he's like on the outside, which I just think is a
thought
little bit
it was
underhanded.
very, like you say, making bolognese sauce. And very unnecessary.
Now it's time to celebrate the latest and greatest me moments from the villa with Sky Mobile. The moments where the Islanders have put themselves and their needs first. In third, we have Joey beautifully describing his feelings for Grace.
All I want to do is give you a kiss, but I just want to be really happy.
Voice of an angel. And in second place, it's Sean marking his territory.
I genuinely want to be proactive with you, and I don't want Omar to
have a sniff of you, and like I do genuinely like want you. So I'm just gonna be on it with you.
She's not a dog, Sean. And the current number one moment is Jess, Samantha and Nicole showing us who's boss.
Remember why we're here.
Remember
Why we are boss bitches.
Remember why we are boss bitches.
I remember why we don't let mid-level entry men take the out of us and make us feel less worthy than we are.
Girl power. Embrace your me energy with Sky Mobile, the network that allows you to change your phone and your data plan to suit you. Yeah.
We've got the boy, Io.
Our favourite boy.
Our favourite boy that we just can't quite put our fingers on.
Last night's episode was the episode where I put my finger on him.
Yeah, you
I think
have?
my sympathy meters ran out.
Ooh, tell us about it.
In the previous episodes, I'm a bit like, oh, he had a new connection and he didn't want to upset Mimi's feelings, but he also wanted to explore this.
Yeah.
By the end of last night's episode, I think I've made my decision that my sympathies ran out just because of the way that he was being flirty with Mimi at the end of the episode. Because Mimi said herself, she's done the triangle already. She doesn't want to do a triangle again, which is completely fair enough. She also said, after 4 weeks, if you're still needing to kiss someone and all that, I don't think you really need more time than that, which I also agree with.
Absolutely.
So for now, to him trying to slowly wean her back in with the flirting and then create a brand new triangle this far in, make up your minds because we're not that far away from the final. You can't take two girls to the final.
We've not got long.
It was a hilarious situation. I feel like somebody pulled the Uno reverse card pretty quickly because like they're having this very serious chat. They stand up and Mimi gives Io like a no-handed hug. A single-handed hug is damaging enough. A no-handed hug is a violation. She just pressed her body up against it. She didn't even touch him with her hands. And then they've gone from that to flirting very quickly. Then, like you said, the pink dress was kind of like a gateway for Io. Is she going to have this? And she did. And she said, do you know what? I hate you. And I know for a fact, when girls say that, at least 5% of the time, they don't mean it. They mean the other thing. Is it 2%?
It's actually 2%. We don't mean it.
But I felt like in that moment, she did not mean I hate you. She potentially meant the other thing. And then he's carried on in the bog whilst he's brushing his teeth, which is the most unsexy thing to do. But I feel like it's the re-beginning of the beginning.
It's tough,
because it's exciting again. There's jeopardy now.
But you know what we've got to remember? I want better for me, but we've got to remember they've had a connection for 4 weeks. So it's like your old flame trying to flirt with you. You know how to flirt with him. You know what he likes.
It's like recycling an ex.
Do you know what I mean? You know how to get them all giddy and whatever, but it doesn't.
But why were they not doing that for the first 4 weeks? Because let's face it, we didn't see that much of them, apart from right at the beginning with Io and Mimi when he was like laying it. He was slathering it on.
Because men want what they can't have.
That is true.
But is this just the whole case of, you know, Io wanting to have his cake and eat it? Because you had Mimi for 4 weeks. You didn't really value her enough and think, you know what, no. I'm going to maybe explore, get to know someone, but I know who I want to come home to.
Yeah.
And I think it's like now he's got both of his options in his eyesight again. Like how he did with Uma and Mimi at the start. And I just feel like he always wants things to be on his terms.
And it's too
100%.
late in the stage now for that. Like him and Mimi have been getting to know each other / being together since the very first day of the series. Like at this point, if you're still not sure, then there's something missing clearly.
Io knows exactly who he wants. Io likes to flirt.
He does.
He likes to play around and he likes to have a good time. And that's fine. But one thing I don't really appreciate, do not flirt and have fun at the expense of someone else. And in this case, it's Mimi.
Exactly.
You know?
It's like you say,
Mimi's
cake
very
and eat it.
vulnerable right now. She doesn't have options.
Exactly.
She actually has none. She is single in this villa. You've known her for 4 weeks. You know how to flirt with her. You know how to make her laugh. So you coming around and being like, oh, you're wearing the pink dress. It's just not necessary. And again, it's also a little bit disrespectful because, you know, you're kissing Jessica in her eye shot, but also you're flirting with Mimi whilst Jessica is still around.
Great rant, Indiyah. Well done.
Just
you did not take one single breath in that, and I enjoyed every second of it. But it's like you said, it's cake and eat it. This guy's had a full Victoria sponge and he's stuffed. Now he's like, I don't know what to do. He's very conflicted and confused. I feel like the end product here is going to be one of those girls is going to be very upset.
Exactly.
I don't think it's going to be Mimi.
I know.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Jess.
Bless her. And then it makes it even worse that Jess has had to go through the whole Casa thing, come in, have the girls, rightfully so, the girls obviously don't want to be best friends with her because it's all just a bit awkward. So have that experience. And then if he just goes back to Mimi, poor Jessica's like, what was all that for?
So on that note as well, Jess did say to Mimi, we didn't have a stronger connection, we just had a connection. What do we think that she's doing there? Like, is she genuinely being friendly and trying to like make Mimi feel better about the situation? Or is she trying to garner a bit of friendship in a villa where she thinks everybody hates her?
I think it's a bit of both. Two things can be true. I think she obviously feels bad for Mimi / awkward in the whole situation. So is trying to downplay maybe her and Aya's situation a little bit so it's less awkward for them. But also at the same time, from what we've seen from her, she seems like a really, really nice girl and a really respectful girl. And she doesn't seem like the type of girl who's going to purposely try and like flaunt it in her face and is trying to just give her like an update on where her and Aya are. But I also think she maybe downplayed it a little tiny bit just to try and save face.
I fully think that her and Mimi would actually genuinely be best mates if the situation wasn't the way it was, and they would be sharing bikinis. And that is the epitome of friendship.
A little bit of devil's avocado here.
Go on then.
Seeing how Mimi and Io were flirting at the end of the episode, and then we've got Jess saying, you know what, it wasn't a case where our connection was stronger and yours was less.
Yeah, and Jess was outside the bog when they were flirting, by the way.
We only see about 40 minutes to an hour a day.
Yeah.
Do you think deep down Jess knows there is a huge possibility that Mimi and Io can get back together, and she is unfortunately maybe the sighting, and she's just doing her job as a cast girl to just try and make her mark. Because one thing I wouldn't like to see, but you know it can happen, is that this can backfire on Jess and she might get upset because like we saw her comforting Io around the fire pit, giving him a kiss, saying, you know what, you're brave, you did what you did. And she could be like, well, look, I was there for you and I helped you when you were down, and you're still gonna go and choose Mimi over me. But it's like she has to put her hardest effort in, but maybe deep down she knows she still might not get there.
Yeah. I don't think they're flaunting it too much, to be fair. There's a few little pecks here and there. They could literally be licking each other's faces, but they aren't.
They're
and
not
I think that
yet.
would be disrespectful. Yeah, she is probably realising now that she just needs to solidify herself with Io now that she's back in the villa. But she might also just be thinking, hey, I'm here.
Yeah,
Don't really matter. Could be anyone at this point.
The end of the episode, Jessica had no idea that Mimi and Io were still a potential. Because when Jessica and Io have a conversation, it's very much like, I'm so glad I brought you. I definitely made the right decision. But then he's going over to Mimi being like, oh, you wore pink because it's your favourite colour. He's leading them both on again whilst not keeping them in communication. It's the Uma and Mimi situation 2.0.
No, it is. You're exactly right. I actually said this. When Ronnie was in there, Io wants to be Ronnie. He wants a shape. He wants to cut some kind of shape on a daily basis. And he comes out of his shell more. And I think like, maybe he enjoys the danger.
You know what we need? We need that film festival. Because imagine Jessica seeing Io say to Mimi right after that situation, oh, you're wearing pink because, you know, I like it.
And as much as Jessica seems like a lovely girl, I know she's got some fire under her
That
belt.
would be so... Oh my gosh. Anyways, enough of those guys because it's making my head hurt.
Yeah, it's making my heart hurt.
It's too much to process.
But who's next then?
Uma and Wil. I mean, you know, Wil was being a lad. He enjoyed his lad's holiday with Lucy, he had fun. You know, Lucy did actually spill the beans a little bit to Uma and said to her, do you know what? We did share a bed.
Yeah.
And he did say that we had a connection. I feel like the way she spoke to Uma about was very open and honest. It did feel, you know, girl code vibe. She wasn't trying to be malicious.
She did well. It was a nice,
wanted to be open
mature
and
chat. The thing with Wil that really confused me, and it sounds like it's confused everybody involved. There was definitely a moment when they were in the hideaway retreat where Wil has said to Lucy, I want to recouple with you. And I think it's got lost in translation a little bit because he basically made it feel like he was going to recouple with her. Then he's another one who's pulled the Uno switch card because he's literally just absolutely double backed on that. So that whole situation is so confusing.
Yeah.
Particularly for Lucy having to explain it to Uma.
Yeah. And I think also from like Uma's standpoint to hear that the person you're coupled up with was voluntarily ready to recouple with someone else.
Especially considering Uma has been outside on them daybeds for 3 days. The amount of mosquito bites she will have on her legs right now, that's going to itch for a week. That's true sacrifice.
Yeah, it's very insensitive. I think especially because us as viewers and probably people in there that are Uma's friends knows how long it's taken Uma to open up physically to Wil. And I think that's probably what's come across like as hurtful the most towards Uma.
A little bit thrown that back in her face.
Yeah.
Like slightly. Like it took me 7 days to kiss you, but it only took me a couple of days to kiss.
That's not Uma's fault.
No, that's not Uma's fault. And actually, like Uma having respect for herself in the way that she carries herself and decides when she wants to like take that to the next level is absolutely her prerogative. Like I feel like that was a bit of a crap thing to say to her.
Yeah, the conversation at the end of last night's episode really threw me off because I was like, oh, they're going to work through this. They're one of my favourite couples. They have been since they first gotten together. It's a little blip. But the way that Wil wasn't very receptive to Uma's feelings and Uma finally went to chat to him And he was like, well, I'm not your boyfriend. Like, I don't think I did anything that wrong. It's like, you're seeing this girl is upset. She was crying last night at the recoupling. She's been really upset today. She's just found out all the information. If you really wanted to salvage this relationship, you would be like, whatever she said, that's the truth. But he was so defensive and just like, well, it's not my fault that you went over there in Casa doing that. Like, you had every right to do that. I'm not your boyfriend. It's like, I'm not sure this is the right tone of voice right now. You're the one in the wrong. It should be groveling, not defensive.
You're right. That's not the tone of voice that ultimately saves a relationship, is it? That's one that probably ends it. But what are our predictions for Umar and Wil now then?
I think they'll make it through.
They'll make it through, but I do want to see Wil put a little bit more graft in and actually
I just
take
don't think
a
he doesn't
little
chat
bit
to her
more
that much.
accountability for his actions.
Yeah.
You went over Casa more. Yes, you explored. It wasn't the nicest thing to do, and that's okay. Just take some accountability and let Umar know that, you know what, I messed up and I am sorry. We did see him shed a little bit of guilt in Casa more. He was saying, oh, you know what, I've kissed Lucy, but I don't think it's the right decision. I'm feeling a bit guilty. So keep that same energy and don't act like Umar's the bad guy.
Yeah.
He's literally not done anything.
I mean, there's explorations and then there's deep dives, and I think these boys been on deep dives, to be honest. Okay, so at the end of the episode, we saw the vote card get
vote
dropped,
card.
which is very exciting. I love to see a vote card. I actually voted.
Oh my God, that means you feel very strongly about it.
I feel very strongly about it. We're voting for the most compatible couple. Mimi's immune because she's single, and thank God, let's keep her in there. Let's find her king. But yeah, what are you two saying? Who would you be voting for right now, Lewis?
Ooh. The strongest couples are obviously Matilda and Sean.
Matilda and Sean?
Really?
Yes, as in like the strongest, like on paper. They've been together the longest. They're still together.
Are we
Matilda
not
and Sean,
forgetting what Sean's just done?
and Ciaran and Uma and Wil, because they've been together the longest.
Fair enough.
However, as of right now in the villa, I don't think those three are very compatible.
Okay.
Which then by default puts me down to the people who've been together a couple of days. And it's not that hard to not be compatible
It's a
after a
tough
few
question
days.
to ask right now,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is. After Casa and Moore, you're asking me who's compatible. Frankly, no one.
Actually, Joey and Jesse.
Joey and Jesse
are probably, on paper, the most compatible
I would agree.
Probably
right
all
now.
the couples that didn't recouple. So we've
Which
got
is
Joey and
wild.
Jesse, and then we've got Ciaran and Nicole, and Matilda and Sean.
And Wil and Uma.
Only Ciaran and Nicole, Joey and Jesse have not done anything in Casa. The rest has got very, very confuddled.
Ciaran and Nicole, because you know what? They do have their old married couple tiffs, but that connection they had at the recoupling,
They're working through it all.
I was nearly in a little bit of
And
tears.
sometimes
it was cute.
the little tiffs and riffs and all that actually is what makes them compatible.
That is just
'cause
getting
it's
to
the
know
way- that is
someone.
actually what it's like
That's
on the
what you have to
outside.
do.
And we've got to remember, guys, they've been in the villa, coming up to 5 weeks now. 5 weeks ago, they were strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't even know each other existed. So to get this far, what is a little couple of
Yeah,
years?
you're going to be tiffing at this point.
What's
And
a couple of
the
arguments?
point of tiffs is you have the tiffs, you work through them, you get to know each other better, you learn people's boundaries, and you
Yeah.
carry on, it makes you stronger. So I'm going to stick with Nicole and Ciaran as the most compatible couple right now because they've had the most tests to make them the most compatible couple.
Yes, we just need Nicole to be a little bit more rational.
I think that will come. That will come. On the outside, they might struggle for a bit, but I think he will prove it to
I
her.
feel like
Because he's
Nicole-
done nothing wrong, and he was the best person in Casa in probably recorded history.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have said Io and Jessica until last night's episode where Io's let me down. So I'm going to throw a wild card. I'm going to say Grace and Blade. What?
Lewis, just leave the
They
room.
have shown no sign. They are the only couple to me so far that have shown
that
no
note,
sign.
guys.
want to bring him back. She wanted to bring Messiah back. What are you talking
On
about?
that note, guys, we have Film Festival, which is happening on Sunday.
Very exciting.
You know what? I feel like we need this film festival because there's a lot of things that we're seeing as viewers that we need the Islanders to see.
Yeah, I'm sick of
And
screaming at the TV and them not being able to hear me.
You know, so finally they see what we're seeing. So stay tuned for Sunday because we will have the film festival.
Oh, I'm literally foaming with excitement. That is us for today. Another emotional, spiritual, and just generally lovely episode. Thanks for being here, guys. Lewis, you're an absolute star. Round of applause,
Thank you
Lewis.
very
Woo,
much.
Lewis,
Thank
it's
you
your
for
last
having me,
morning.
guys.
It's been an absolutely
been
fantastic
fabulous
week.
time.
Thank you for joining
Yeah,
us.
thanks for coming, mate. And big round of applause for Indiyah.
Hey!
Just for being here every day.
Honestly.
Do you know what I mean?
And
Smashing
guys,
it.
if you have any questions, please make sure to pop them in the comments. We will read them and we really hope that you give us a 5-star rating because as you know, we will give you a 5-star show. And stay tuned because I will be with you guys again on Sunday for After Sun.
Yas, Queens. And make sure
Woo.
you subscribe.
Bye, guys.
Bye.